Most musicians set their fee based on fear. They pick a number low enough that a promoter won't say no. And by doing that, honestly, they leave most of their potential income on the table. One of my students was charging $1,000 for his band, and when he applied the framework that I'm about to show you, he got $10,000 for a gig. Same musician, same band, but obviously very different approach. My name is Dall'Asta and I've helped thousands of musicians build sustainable careers. And this is the exact framework that I teach inside my workshop. Here is how it works. Step 1 is actually to know your number. And honestly, most musicians don't know their number. They'll just take whatever gig comes in for whatever fee. Now, I'm going to guide you through an exercise on how to find your number. At first, this exercise will sound oversimplistic, but actually stick with it, because the sole purpose of this exercise is not to give you a number under which you're not going to accept the gig. There is a deeper strategy to this. So stick with me until the end of the exercise and it will all make sense in the end. So step 1 is to write down your annual income goal from your gigging. Now set something that is quite a bit higher than what you charge right now or what you earn right now per year, but also, of course, it should feel achievable. For example, if right now you earn $50,000 a year from your live music, write your annual income goal to be 70,000 or 80,000. See, it's an amount that sounds exciting but still yet achievable. Why is that? Because obviously if you write $1 million, that's going to be obviously a lot more than what you earn now, but it's not going to feel exciting because it doesn't feel achievable. Step 2 is to write down how many gigs you want to play per week. Why do I say per week? Well, it's a lot easier to picture your week and to know how your week normally goes. It depends on your particular situation. Maybe you've got kids. Maybe you don't have kids. Maybe your kids are grown-ups and don't live with you anymore. Maybe you have other commitments. Maybe you've got work and whatever it might be. So it's easier to picture your week. And so write down how many gigs do you want every single week. It might be 3 gigs, 4 gigs, whatever works for you. Now, the next step is to multiply that number by 50. Obviously, we have 52 weeks in a year, so why 50? Well, it's just to give you a conservative scenario where, maybe sometimes you're going to be sick for a week, maybe you want to take holidays, maybe you won't be able to gig for a week, and so on and so forth. So to play it safe, we'll multiply that number by 50. That will give you the number of gigs that you will play per year. Again, the purpose of this exercise is not to simplify things and to give you a number under which you're not going to accept the gig. There's a deeper strategy, as I said. We'll get into that in a moment. So with that number, which is your weekly gigs times 50, divide your annual income goal by that number. And that's your fee per gig. If you have a band, I'm just talking about the fee that is going to be for you. Example, let's say your goal is $60,000 per year from your live music. And let's say you want to play 2 gigs per week. That is 100 gigs a year. So 60,000 divided by 100 is 600. It means your number is now $600. Now, does it mean that we're going to turn down all the gigs that pay less than that? No, but we're going to use it for the strategy that I'm going to teach you in this video, which is how to negotiate. So pause this video or rewatch this whole section as many times as you need until you have that number. Now, chances are also, as a side note, you maybe have a number that feels, again, unrealistic. For example, depending on the numbers that you used, maybe now you have $4,000 or $5,000 per gig, which is not impossible. There are definitely gigs that pay that. What I'm saying is, if the number that you get at the end, your dollars per gig, again, feels unrealistic, then play with the numbers a little bit. Maybe you can lower your annual income goal. Maybe you can say, okay, let's play a few more gigs per week, and so on and so forth, until you get your number, which again should be higher than what you charge now, but it should still feel achievable for where you're at now in your career. So that number becomes your anchor. Then with that number, we'll move on to the next step. And the next step is the golden rule: never go first. Here is the most important rule in any negotiation. Never give your price first. When a promoter asks what you charge, resist the urge of just saying a number and instead do this. You reply, look, what I charge depends on a few factors, such as, and then it's going to be up to you what you list there. Personally, I say depending on lineup, depending on times, depending on travel, depending on sound system, depending on lighting, and so on and so forth. And then you say, can you give me a rough idea of your budget so that I can see the best option that I can offer you? And then you just wait and you let them go first. And here is why this method works, and this is why this method instantly is going to raise your average income by 25% guaranteed. So what usually happens, and it happens all the time actually, because I see it with my students a lot, I see it with myself a lot, usually happens that they get back to you with a higher budget than you had in mind. And that usually happens because us musicians are so good at undervaluing ourselves or not charging enough. Somehow maybe it's society, it's our family, the environment that we grew up in. We've been brainwashed to think this is not a real job. We almost apologize for wanting to do this as a real job, and so we tend to undercharge. So often what happens is that we get offered more when we let them go first than the amount that we would have asked. So when that happens, happy days. Of course, there are two other scenarios. There is the scenario where they offer less than your number, in which case what you're going to do is, look, normally for this type of event, for these type of conditions, here's what I charge. And here's where your anchor number comes into play. You will quote that number and you'll say, normally I charge this, but I understand that you might have a limited budget, or I understand that you have a smaller budget for this event. So would we be able to meet somewhere in the middle? And so in this case, you still get paid more because yes, although it is less than your anchor number, it is still more than the fee that they were willing to pay or the fee that they had in mind. The third scenario is that they either don't reply, ghosting you, or you lose the gig because of this approach, which, in all transparency, a small percentage of gigs that actually can happen. Regardless, if you apply the system to every single gig, it will average out and your income will increase to 25% more average throughout the year. And honestly, this happens actually so very little times to lose the gig because of this strategy that it is completely worth it. And plus, those people are not the people that you want to work with in the first place if they're not willing to negotiate and if they don't understand that you are charging what you're worth. So the bottom line is the musician who goes first is always the one that leaves all the money on the table. The one who asks first almost never does. And one more thing, if you end up getting less than your anchor number, so if you end up coming to an agreement and finding a middle ground with the festival, with the promoter, with the venue in question, don't just lower your fee for the sake of it. You can still ask for something in return. For example, let's find a middle ground. Perhaps you can have us regularly if you like us. So you can start laying out the cards from the beginning so that then when you go and play and they like you, it will also turn into a regular gig. Or you could negotiate more things, for example, for them to promote you on their social media channels and so on and so forth. And again, generally, if they cannot meet your minimum, just decline the gig. It's not stubbornness. It's just knowing what your time is worth. And of course, I do get, sometimes I get objections to this strategy. People say, there are no gigs that pay this amount and so on and so forth. Look, the problem is that if we focus on the low-hanging fruit only, if you only focus on the smaller gigs and the gigs that actually don't move your career, then that's actually a problem. You want to move away from those gigs and you want to aim higher and higher every time. Always gather better promotional materials, always gather social proof, more following, more credibility around your project, and keep moving up and up in your career as a musician. So a student of mine, Gabriel, actually applied this strategy. We were chatting one-on-one and he said, "Hey man, I got this opportunity, what do I quote?" I said, "Don't go first. Always let the other party go first, as I taught you." And again, he was going to charge $1,000 for the gig. The venue got back to him saying, it's not a venue actually, it was a private client. He said, "We're still working on the logistics of this event, but under $10,000, please." And so he was freaking out because he would have charged 10 times less. Now, for transparency, this was actually a 2 days gig. So it was one event, 2 gigs, one day after the other. So actually $5,000 per gig 2 times, but still a very good weekend if you ask me. And I've got so many of these stories, so many students that get back to me with amazing results from this strategy. So make sure you give it a shot and also let me know what happened in your case. Now, 2 mistakes that I see constantly when it comes to negotiations for musicians. Mistake 1, apologizing for your fee. Saying things like, "I know it might be a lot." Never apologize for what you charge. State it and let it land. And actually apologies, signal insecurity and you're actually inviting a pushback. And the second mistake that I see a lot is not knowing your own number before having that conversation. If you walk into any negotiation, even if you're letting the other party go first, without a number, then you already lost. Because you'll have to adjust on the fly based on what they say. And this is how you end up accepting fees that actually don't work for you. Do the maths first, know your number, and then negotiate. So in case you haven't done it yet, do the exercise, know your number, put it in the comments, and here's a recap of the exercise again. State your annual income goal from gigs. Make it above what you earn now, but still it should sound achievable and realistic. It should sound exciting. If you're earning 50K a year now, say 70, 75, 80. Don't say 250,000. If you earn 20,000 now, say 30, 35. So it should be higher than what you earn now and should still feel achievable and exciting. Next, think of your average week and think, how many gigs would I be willing to play every week? How many gigs would I be happy to play every week? Let's say that's 3 or 4. Multiply that number by 50. I know we have 52 weeks in a year, but multiply it by 50 so that you have some room for some weeks where you go on holidays or don't want to gig or you're sick. With that number, you will divide your annual income goal by that number, and then we'll give you your anchor price, your anchor number. Again, as I said, it doesn't mean you'll have to turn down every gig that doesn't pay you that, but that anchor number will help you with negotiations and knowing what you want for every gig. And look, the musicians with full calendar and higher paid gigs are not luckier than you, they just know this stuff. If you want help implementing this, the full booking system, the email templates, the whole pipeline, all of it, I'll leave a link in the description to a resource that walks you through the whole thing and how to fill your calendar with the gigs that you really want and turn this into a very profitable career. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.